we've been doing this year is our first Sunday back from the seventh Sunday. We have a corporate communion time. So we will be doing that to close today's service. If you've never been with us for a corporate communion service, they are wonderful. So I look forward to taking the Lord's Supper with all of you here before we depart today and before we go next door for some social time and food. For those of you that watched the seventh Sunday message online last week, you got a primer for the subject that I'm going to be talking about over the next few weeks here in our weekend services here at West Coast Church. So I really like my job now. I don't know if I liked it at first so much. Maybe because I wasn't very good at it. I don't know. But I'm really growing to like what I do. There's this awesome scripture, 1 Timothy, where Paul's talking to Timothy, his kind of apprentice, his son in the faith, and he says, "Fight in the Lord's battles." I'm like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. And I think the Lord is calling the church to fight in a battle right now. So we are in the world. We are called not to be of the world. Jesus even prayed this prayer that you might think is a little odd right before he goes into the Garden of Gethsemane, and he says, "I ask you, Father, not to take them out of the world." Knowing full well that in this world they have trouble. But he says, but to protect them from the evil one. So we are an occupying force on planet Earth. That's what the believer is. And I want to talk to you as believers about something that now has come front and center into my consciousness as a pastor, as a husband and a father, as a man. In Mark chapter 13, verse 34, Jesus says, "The coming of the Son of Man can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. When he left home, he gave each of his slaves instructions about the work they were to do, and he told the gatekeeper to watch for his return. You too must keep watch, for you don't know when the master of the household will return, in the evening, at midnight, before dawn, or at daybreak. Don't let him," Jesus is referring to himself in his second coming, "find you sleeping when he arrives without warning. I say to you what I say to everyone, watch for him." So as believing people, we are called to be diligent and resolute in our alertness, in our sobriety of mind, and to watch. Like Jesus said, to be wise as shrewd as serpents, right? Harmless as a dove. So the believing person is called to be awake, not woke. That's different. Again, Satan's not very creative. He just inverts or copies in a real sick and twisted way what God wants from us and wants for us. And that is for us to be fully awake. So as a believer, you are called to be a gatekeeper. Different times I've kind of had my moments where I've been flaming out and I've just like, God, I can't do this. I'm not fit for this. You know exactly how I am. I am not fit for this. And I'll never forget saying to the Lord, I'm not a shepherd. I can't be a shepherd. A pastor is a shepherd. That's what it means in the Greek. I'm not a shepherd. He goes, good. Could you be my shepherd dog? He goes, because I'm the shepherd and I just need a good dog to help bark so the sheep don't run off. Could you do that? And I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. I can bark. I can run around. Something else the Lord's telling me is like, Lord, I don't feel fit to be here. I'm not, in this role, this responsibility. And I said, these Levites had all these different jobs, and I just don't know where I fit in all this. I know you're the high priest. And he's like, you're the doorman. And I was like, excuse me? He's like, the guy that opens the door, the gatekeeper, you open and close the door. And I'm like, I can do that, right? So the Lord has a way of talking to you, to your spirit, as you learn to discern his voice. And as a believer, I consider my role here to be one that's pretty simple, which is good, because I need simple. I like to tie knots. I need the knot to be simple so I don't die. It's like I need this knot to work. I need this tool, like where's the battery go? And it's like I need it to be straightforward for me, okay? Don't make it too mystical or too complicated. Well, my job as a pastor at this local church is to help prepare you for eternity in the presence of the living God. And I will do my duty. I will do my job. And I like my job. My job is to make God's people ready to know the Lord Jesus Christ and to grow in godliness all the days of their life and to come into heaven thrilled and excited to be there. Would you like to be that kind of person? I know that's the kind of person I want to be. So my objective here today and over the coming weeks is to help assist you to succeed in your spiritual journey here as a sojourner on the earth. And there are obstacles in your path. Now, just as I've been called to be a gatekeeper, you are a gatekeeper. You are a gatekeeper in your home, whether you are married or you're single. You are a gatekeeper whether you have children or not, or grandchildren. Everyone is a gatekeeper of their own house. I mean, at night when you go to sleep, unless you live out in the country and you know your neighbors, you tend to lock the doors. Most of you have some kind of elaborate ring system where you can see whoever's on your front porch and talk to them, right? You have some kind of security. We don't just let anybody walk into our house. We don't just let anybody come into our house any time of day, certainly not to crawl through the window. We let people come in, and then when we invite guests over, everyone understands there's a certain point in the evening, it's like, it's time for you to go now, okay? It's time to go, because we need to go to sleep, right? And you want to sleep and go home, and we've eaten, it's time to go. So you're a gatekeeper in your own house. You're a gatekeeper in your workplace. For those of you, especially those of you that own businesses, or if you're in some leadership position, you may be a manager or supervisor, you operate as a gatekeeper in your workplace. You have a role and responsibility. You get to say who comes in and who has permission to politely leave. You work as a gatekeeper in the local church. Every single one of you is a gatekeeper of a variety of types, which I could go into another topic on teaching. But as a spiritual gatekeeper in the local church, each of you are coming in here with a doorway in your heart that can open up. It's supposed to open up so the Spirit of the Lord can come out. The Spirit of the Lord can flow through you and in you. Well, all of us are also called to be gatekeepers in our community. That's this area. And for our purposes, we live in Manatee County. It's a pretty big county. But you could take any county or any section of a state at large in the United States. We belong to a community. Many of you live in neighborhoods that has a certain name, and you identify that neighborhood by that name. And so we have neighbors and we have fellow citizens that we participate in this process of looking out for one another. So from our own individual lives to our spouses, to our children, to our workplaces, to our community, we're called to be gatekeepers. In the Bible, a gatekeeper is a person responsible for guarding the entrances to a city, to temples, or important buildings, ensuring that only authorized individuals can enter. This role is significant for maintaining order and security, as seen in various scriptures where gatekeepers protect the sanctuary of God's dwelling place and manage access to it. This is all throughout the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, but references also in the New. So I believe that we've reached an inflection point in the United States of America, that's where we live, but at the earth at large, where the technology that has been designed and offers us incredible tools is now creating for us a prison. Okay? I'm not advocating you go watch these movies, but most of you have probably seen them. This came out just after I got to high school. Some kids might not even know what the name of this movie is, which is a strange experience for me now to reference things, and kids are like, I don't know what that is. There's a movie called The Matrix, okay? Some of you have seen it. At the time, it was very sci-fi. But in that storytelling, there is a digital future after the advent of AI and autonomous robots and a war between human beings, and all of humanity is enslaved. And they're put into a digital world where they think they're alive, but they're really just in a pod having their body juices sucked out for energy for the machines. It's a real dystopian nightmare, okay? Let me tell you what. We're well on our way, okay? The technology has moved from radio to television, from television to big clunky computers. then from clunky computers to laptops, from laptops down to tablets, then down into smartphones and every other iteration, to where now people have the opportunity and availability to be online 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And here's what the data is showing. That's what people are essentially doing. The average teenager spends between 6 and 8 hours online a day. And most teenagers, about approximately half of them, if you ask them, they think about being online when they're not online. So in effect, their mind is on being online or checking a post or making a post 16 hours a day. Now, I grew up, I'm at the tail end of Gen X, okay? And in my generation, it was fairly common for children and teens to watch television somewhere between 2 and 3 hours a day. So we've gone from 2 or 3 hours a day, not good, right? That's mind-baking enough, to now more like 6 to 10. Now, and I'm not even talking about adults. I'm just talking about young people, especially those who don't remember a world without a smartphone in it. Who here has gone out to dinner? Do not raise your hand if you've done this. And while you're at dinner, there's a little beautiful 2 or 3 year old just raising total hell in the restaurant. Okay, they're just like destroying the environment. And you're like, what's going on? And what does the parent do? Hands them a phone or a tablet, instant pacification. Okay? Now, these smart devices work on adults and kids because they've been strategically designed to do so. I'm just going to say some things. You're going to hear me say this over and over again. The devices that we use started out as tools, but now they are something far beyond a tool. They still are tools, but they're something else, okay? A network system is being used against the world in a social experiment that is going very badly right now. The moment that people were able to begin carrying around a phone in their hand and to be online 24/7, here's what happened. There was no longer a sacred space on the earth. Amen. Amen. Everything is now common. Everything is profane. Once you could take the World Wide Web and access all human history and knowledge at any given time, everything became common. Now, why is this something that we need to look at? Well, because it's pretty simple, friends. We're all participating in a social experiment to the tune of billions of people, and these devices that we carry around with us everywhere have no boundaries. None. There's no boundaries. What sort of thing ever do we interact with that doesn't have a boundary? How about you think about it? I'm going to show you in a minute an example of some things that all have boundaries. And we're all going to laugh about it. And then you're going to sit here and you're going to think, how is it possible that we have these and there's no restrictions? We are living in something far more wild than the Wild Wild West. Whoever thought it'd be cool to like run around on a horse through Nevada with a lever gun and a 6-shooter, and like you come across some Indians and it's like, it's on. Or you come across some bad thieving cowboys, you like put your hat back, you think that'd be cool? Like this is way beyond that, okay? We're way beyond Wild Wild West. And a different reality has been created that's splitting and dividing into multiple realities right now. So I've been reading a series of books, which I'm going to reference different ones. And this has been going on for me for the better part of like 6 years. And I noticed this trend in these books. They were talking about this thing that these researchers and psychologists and sociologists were noticing. Pastors, teachers, professors, they're noticing there's something wrong. There's something seemingly wrong. We can't quite put our finger on it, but we think that our young people are suffering. Teenagers, especially children, something's off. Adults aren't acting quite right. The rise in mental illness is so precipitous that it doesn't really make sense. What's going on? Well, there's one book in particular that I've been reading and rereading, and I don't recommend this book as a pastor to go get any kind of spiritual theology. This is simply a book done by a researcher who happens, by the way, to be an evolutionary sociologist, like atheist. Okay, so I'm not promoting his worldview about how the world came into existence or not. But he is a researcher, and the research that they're compiling and finding is shocking. It's disturbing. And it solidified something for me. And here's some of the things that he talks about regarding the observation of Gen Z and Gen Alpha. These are the people that have been alive or born in the last, give or take, say like 18 years, maybe 20, more like 15. He refers to the period of time that's been taking place over the last decade as the Great Rewiring. And this is where the world shifted from children and teenagers having a play-based childhood into a phone-based childhood. From a physical embodied experience to a digital unembodied experience growing up. He talks about a concept, a term I have not heard before, but I think he may have coined it for this book, called safetyism. Safetyism is the worship of safety above everything else. And he talks about how basically two things, as best they can tell as researchers, converged at about the same time in the early 2000s. Now, I remember as a boy, I remember the little girl's name. I was a little boy, and we lived in this part of Wichita, Kansas, and at the end of our street, there was a like shady-ish gas station. A little girl named Nancy Shoemaker was kidnapped. She was, raped and murdered and killed in some horrible, terrible story. And this was one of the first times I recall, I was a little kid, probably about this little girl's age, that I realized there was such a thing as a national news story. Well, as these type of national news stories came out, kids being abducted, kids being, captured and kidnapped and whatnot, people started to really freak out and anxiety started to build. So people started to kind of reel their kids in, right? There's child predators on every corner. There's human traffickers and there's all this danger. And so as children were brought inside, it was convenient because we not only had televisions, but we had Nintendo. And then we had Super Nintendo and Sega. And then we got Sony PlayStation. And then it just went on from there. And so we have digital devices to keep our kids occupied, right? If they're not watching MTV, which is that's kind of dead now, but that was like the big great evil on television. Then you had cable news, and it went from 5 channels to 25 channels to then 75, then 100 to I don't even know how many there are now. Do we even watch channels now? It's Netflix and other things. But children were able to be brought indoors, and they could be pacified with games, though kids still did, funny things and still got to play outside and interact. And, it used to be that you couldn't sit down and play Fortnite or Halo or Modern Warfare with people in another country, okay, in real time and talk trash to them. You couldn't do that. You can only talk trash to your friend who was sitting right next to you, and you're punching him, stop, You had to play in the real world. Even Nintendo and Sega and Sony and whatever else, it was still embodied play to some extent because you're still right there. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about something that's happened in the minds of young people and children, from video games to smartphones. And where we find ourselves today is people at large are having a totally disembodied experience of reality. And it's causing catastrophic problems, significant problems, okay? Now, I'm not pointing a finger at anyone here. I'm just going to ask you to participate and experiment with me. If any of you are school teachers or you're at the college level, you know all about this. You can walk into rooms now filled with young people. There can be 10, 20, 100. They're not even talking to each other. They're all on their phone. You watch people outside exercising. I saw a guy the other day riding his bike with his phone. I'm like, that's going to hurt. I was kind of I wonder if he's going to make that curve. Sure enough, he made it. He was okay. He's learned how to multitask his phone and ride a bicycle. But we have a whole group of young people that are now very adept. They've developed a whole different set of life skills online. They can comment, share at breakneck pace. They can keep track of their followers and different video feeds and influencers on a scale that is impressive cognitively. But get them in a room and ask them a question. Try to hold a conversation. And I'm sitting here to myself thinking, are you dumb? I'm not trying to be mean, but I think this person is not right. I don't think they're all the way there. You're thinking, did you get hit hard in the head? You can't function. Can you not see me? They don't look at you. They can't talk to you. And if they do talk, something real strange happens. They only talk about one thing the whole time, themselves. They just talk about them and their problems and their anxiety. And you're like, this isn't normal. How is it that everybody has anxiety and depression and everyone's trying to figure out how to, what their therapist told them? They're like, do you realize that you've only talked about yourself for the last 6 hours? Why do you do that? Well, because they live in a world where they have an algorithm and a feed that only shows them what they want to see. So why would the real world be any different? Totally unsocialized. No play-based experience. You haven't learned to give and take. On the playground, if you don't share, the kids just stop playing with you. Or they call you names. Heaven forbid kids are mean to you. Okay, kids are mean to each other from time to time, by the way. But you know what typically happens? They have a spat and then they get over it. Online, someone can get mad at you, and they're telling you to suicide yourself with 1,000 likes. And now you got a beautiful little 13-year-old girl who kills herself because of social media influence. We have young people killing themselves over social media. It's atrocious. It's demonic. And I'm telling you right now, the church has done this before. I pray there's other pastors and other people that have some gumption that start to do what I'm doing right now. Have a little courage to call out the very clear threat that's in the room. Okay? If a polar bear rips that door off the hinges and makes its way in here and starts eating the communion bread and cups, and all of you act like nothing's going on, I'm going to be like, hey, that's a polar bear. When he's done with the crackers and the juice, he might eat you. Well, we have something, I don't know what you want to liken it to, but is it strange that everywhere you go, everyone has one of these? And everywhere they go, most of the time, this is all they're doing? Now, listen, the iPhone came out, if I have the facts straight, about 2007. And for the first 2 years, there really was a very limited amount of apps on the iPhone. And you know what it was? It was a productivity just wonder. If you're a business person or entrepreneur, if you're in the military, if you're a production person of any kind, it was incredible. It like made the BlackBerry look like nonsense. But 2 years later, the App Store opened. We go from a couple hundred apps to a couple 100,000. And we have the advent of something called social media. Within a couple years of social media, it shifted dramatically because you could start liking people's comments, sharing. And then the designers of the devices realized something real powerful. Put the camera on the front so people can view themselves. And now we've fully immersed into a total narcissistic existence. I'm not living in like the digital reality, I'm just living in my own. I have my own universe. Not just a digital one, it's not just the Matrix, everybody's got their own. Okay. So this thing called safetyism combined with the advent of these phones. So all the kids came inside, we don't want you to get kidnapped. Don't climb the tree, you might break your arm. Sometimes you need to break your arm, okay? Sometimes you need to climb up in the tree, you need to fall out. And realize that something happens when you fall out of a tree. You don't usually die, unless you're really, really high. But most kids fall out of trees, they break their arm, like, ah! This is a true story, I kid you not. We have a brother-in-law. Years ago, we invite them over to the house. They don't come over very much. They come over. My brother-in-law, he's remarried, he brings his wife's kids, sweet kids. They're playing outside in our CrossFit rig. Boy falls off the CrossFit rig, breaks his arm. Oh, comes inside, arm limp like this, hanging down. Oh, and they're like, well, our family time is over. Off to the emergency room they go. So, needless to say, we weren't real jazzed up about having another family get-together. I'm not making this up. 3-4 years later, we really miss our family. We should have them over again, invite all the family over. Kids are playing in the backyard. Little daughter climbs up on a tree branch that's this high. I promise you, it's a live oak. It's like 100 years old. This branch is like this high. She falls off, comes running, arm snapped off in half. I'm like, man, what's going on here? Is there some kind of weird demonic attack where the kids come over and they snap their arms? Well, it was sketchy and it was a problem, and it kind of created some tension in the family relationship because they're thinking, we can't go over there. Our kids are going to die. But here's the thing that happened. They didn't die. They got their arms broke, and you know what happened? They went and got their arms set and re-healed. You know what the little kids learned? Well, climbing trees is a little bit dangerous. You can break your arm, but you probably won't die. There's a lot of things in life that you're designed to do. They're a little scary, and they might even be a little dangerous, maybe even a little questionable. But you need to do those things to realize you don't always die. Matter of fact, you don't always get hurt. If you use good judgment, you can do super dangerous stuff, right?
Yeah.
You can work dangerous jobs. You can be in the military. You can go save people that are in a tight spot because you learned how to become resilient. Well, people learn to become resilient by playing. They play on the playground, and they play games like sports, some contact sports, and you learn that human beings are anti-fragile. Hey, guess what? I got some good news. Like you hear these like horror stories. I heard this horror story one time. I'm going to tell you a horror story. This guy was talking about him and his sister. They're playing. His little sister, she's not even 10 years old. He went to slam the door shut, and when he did it, hit her in the back of the spine and paralyzed her from the waist down for the rest of her life. You're like, it's like a freak story. That's not what normally happens when you get hit with a door. But we hear one-off stories, like a kidnapping, or the girl that got, her spinal cord severed. Listen, I've done some stuff where I bounced off the ground lots of times. I'm like, I should not be walking away from that, and did, as well as a lot of my friends. I'm saying people can get hurt, and they do, but children need to play, and teenagers need to interact. Good luck if you have teens, like I do, trying to find a mate for them. They can't even talk to each other. Why do they need to? The boys have endless hardcore pornography on their phone, completely unrestricted. They can watch it 24/7. Why do you need a relationship? So we had this thing converge where kids stopped playing outside for the most part, and they went on their phones, and we exchanged play-based, embodied experience, social interactions, learning like how to work with people, how to get along, how to say sorry, how to make a friend, how to talk to each other, in exchange for digital communication, where you can friend request people. Like I just joined LinkedIn, which I don't know if that was a good idea or a bad idea. I stayed off that for a long time. But like it's got its own weird little world of like such goofy nonsense, people trying to be like business professional. I'm like, this is such a joke. I'm just like, okay, but like every single social media platform kind of has its own vibe to it. It's its own little individual world. But people have become very adept at negotiating these platforms. I mean, people know how to use filters. You get the gist of this. What I want to draw your attention to is that, as best that researchers can tell, digital devices that are mobile and online connected are experience blockers. Who here has a child or a teenager, and at the onset of puberty think it'd be a great idea to put them on hormone blockers? And then when they come of age in their early 20s and decide that they're going to get married or start a family, that they're going to have a successful rate trying to make babies. Who here feels real confident that's a good idea? I'm going to put my kid on hormone blockers because they're not sure about their gender. We're going to just shut down all the natural processes, or worse yet, we're going to pump them full of testosterone or estrogen or something their body doesn't even make in these quantities, and then we're just going to hope for the best. They'll snap out of it at 21. No, they don't. You've been essentially chemically neutered, castrated with hormones. Well, I got news for you. Here's what the research shows. Just as you can put a kid on hormone blockers and totally stop their adult sexual development, you can hand a kid a smartphone at 10 years of age and literally turn off their brain and cause it not to wire up the way it's supposed to socially, and instead it wires up digitally. And in social settings, they're basically incapacitated. We got a group of kids that are growing up, they can't carry on a conversation. They wouldn't know the first thing about how to ask a girl or a boy to go out on a date. Would you be my girlfriend or my boyfriend? What do you do now in school? You text a picture. Hey, would you like to be my girlfriend? No, here's what kids do today. They just text pictures of their genitals to each other. That's what kids are doing in junior high and in elementary school. That's the new hot thing. Just send naked pictures of yourself back and forth. Boys think it's funny, but the girls feel ashamed, and now the boys say, unless you do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to send this to everybody in the school. My job is to help you. Not everybody likes help, especially when someone brings it to you in a way that tells you, listen, this is how bad it is. But here's the good news. There's a pathway forward. There's a way to push back against this. There's a way to save and redeem the kids that are trapped in this right now and bring them out. We're going to be talking about it in the coming weeks. But you take a smartphone plus an overprotective parent, and what you get in the simple addition of these two things is real-life experience blocking. So if you're a grandparent or you're a parent, and you've handed a kid a smartphone, and there's no boundaries on that smartphone regarding how much time they use it, where they go, there's not total oversight, you have just literally denied them. They are going to choose that phone 10 times out of 10 for a screen-based experience rather than a social one. 10 times out of 10. Now, I'm going to give you a short list. This author identifies 4 harms from smartphones. I'm going to do this from memory if I can. So the first one is social separation. So when kids spend large blocks of time, you see this in adults too, but they become socially isolated, number one. Socially disoriented. Kids and adults. Next, their attention becomes fragmented. They can't, everybody has ADD now, okay? Oh, you have ADD. It's not your fault. No, you have a smartphone, and you've learned to scroll at 100 miles an hour. Okay, so attention fragmentation. Ask a teacher in school right now, is algebra going good? Huh? How about world history? Are the kids soaking that up? How are they doing on their testing? Well, it seems like they're real distracted. Can't hold their thoughts on anything for very long. It's because they have attention fragmentation. The next big thing is insomnia. Can't sleep. Having a hard time sleeping. Really? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Why can't you sleep? I don't know. I just can't sleep. And number 4, arguably the most problematic, we have social separation, we have attention fragmentation, we have isolation, you have addiction. Yeah. Hardcore addiction. Now, addiction to mobile devices, specifically unlimited smartphone access, is literally digitally rewiring our brains. This is worse for some adults than others. You know an adult right now that they're completely beholden to their smartphone, and heaven forbid their iWatch. Oh, that's better. That got better. Oh, okay. I'm going to put my phone away so we can have a conversation. It's like, just put your phone, put your watch. Oh, you got the goggles, you got the glasses, all good for you. They got a pod over there waiting for you. Just slip right in, and they'll hook you up, and you'll have a utopian life. They're just going to suck all your energy out. It'll be great. In fact, that's where we're headed, okay? So we have this great rewiring of childhood and really of our whole society as Americans. I'm telling you what, this is bombardier doors over the target, what I'm talking about right here. Listen to me. Pastors are supposed to tell you when it's time to pay attention. The church is the one that sounds the alarm in the culture. Shouldn't be the psychologists and sociologists, atheist professors. No, the church is the one that should call the people back from the edge of the cliff. Say, hey, we got to look at this. Something's not right, okay? You look at the movements in the past, abolition against alcohol, right? You look at freedom of the slaves, civil rights, women's rights. Many times what you'll go find out, the heart of these movements was the church. So this isn't right. Now, all movements tend to get hijacked in time, but we're in one right now, okay? This is happening now, real time. It's happening right now. We're in the thick of it now. And we have to ask ourselves a question. What should be done? What should a believer do when it comes to the management of these mobile devices? First in your own life, and then the lives of your children. For you that have little babies, 4, 5, 6, they haven't yet got to the, give me my smartphone for my 9th birthday. You got a chance to save your kid's future. For those of you that have already handed off phones, you got some work cut out for you, okay? Because there has to be boundaries on these devices. I'm running out of time. What you're about to see, you are not going to forget. I promise you that. Who likes it when a salesman delivers on their promise? Okay, listen, I am trained in professional sales. I like selling. I'm about to sell to you right now. You are not going to forget what you're about to see. Now, I'm going to tell some stories as I do this. Lord Jesus, help me. This table right here, this table is a holy table. Here's why it's holy. Not because it has some weird, like spiritual whatever. It's holy because it's been set apart for the purposes of God. You know what we do from this table? Preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. Read from God's word and serve communion. This table is holy, consecrated. Now here's 3 things on this table that are holy. Here's a Bible. It's the word of God. That's holy. Here's Holy Communion. You're about to take some of this in a minute. And here's some holy anointing oil. You're sick. We will pray for God to heal your body, set you free. These things are holy and separated unto the Lord. This table is common. Nothing special about it. And the word of the Lord in the book of Ezekiel to the sons of Zodak, the priest, was, you will teach my people the difference between what is holy and what is common. Because they went into captivity because they did not recognize the difference anymore. You as God's people, of all people, must be clear on what is holy and what is common. Now, pay attention. I've got here some cow soul. Chocolate milk. Maybe the greatest liquid in existence. I don't know. It's bored in chocolate milk. I like the low fat. It's my personal preference. But since my kids were little, occasionally I take them to the gas station. I get them chocolate milk. And I'd be just like, the reason it tastes so good is because it's not normal milk. The actual soul of the cow is in there. Okay, so there's some chocolate milk. You know who likes chocolate milk? Little kids. They love it. Now, if they can't drink chocolate milk, maybe it's white milk or strawberry milk. I mean, I should have invested in milk when my kids were under the age of 8. It was like double fisting gallons of milk and just to be gone in like 48 hours, over and over and over again. Well, to add to this chocolate milk, I have some Oreos. Who likes those? Yeah, go ahead, show me your hands. Who likes some good old-fashioned Oreos? Now, you might be more of a white milk purist. I am when it comes to chocolate, when it comes to Oreos. I want skim milk. I like it watered down, ice cold. I will put the entire package away. Now, I haven't done that for years because my body says, hey, bring on the calories, but goosh. So I don't do that, okay? I might have 1 or 2, so I'm showing this. This right here, my friends, if I leave this out on the table at my house, and I just back away, and I just watch, it will not take very long before these items disappear and they are consumed by my children. If I leave these in the cupboard, I'll go into the cupboard, I'll be like, oh, look, there's maybe an Oreo left. No, it's just the empty package. That's all it is. I'm like, hey, at least throw the package away. This is like psychological trauma. Walk in here, I'm going to get myself an Oreo. Nope. Dad. Okay. All right, so if I leave this out on the table, that's going to be confiscated very quickly. Now, I want to take this up a notch. Babies and children, you have to watch your babies and children because, I don't know if you know this, but like sugar is an addictive substance. You can get addicted to sugar. Sugar, when you got an addiction to sugar, causes a lot of problems. It can even cause cancer. Sugar is a problem if it's unchecked. It causes a wild insulin response in your body, and it causes us problems because white processed sugar is not good for you. Now, we just had a birthday at our house this week, and I had a sliver of key lime pie because I celebrated that birthday, and it was fantastic. But I didn't eat the whole key lime pie because my pancreas would explode. So I'm not saying you can't have Oreos or chocolate milk, but you're going to have to tell your children you can't live off of that. You can't have Oreos and chocolate milk for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's not good for you. And you'll develop addiction to where nothing tastes good except Oreos and chocolate milk, right? Are you getting the visual illustration? Because we just got started. All right, teenagers, come on now. Yeah. Got to watch out for that. I see some of you smiling. I see you smiling. I'm going to add to that. I'm going to add to the complexity. How about this? Ooh, that is nasty bad for you right here. Now, if you don't know what this is, you don't have teenagers. These are Takis Fuego. I don't even know what it is. They got blue and green versions. It's bad for you, okay? You can consume these items, and they will give you very empty calories and make you feel like you're on some kind of superhuman drug for about, an hour. But your teens, you got to watch out for this. They learn that if they drink a Monster and then try to cram for a test at night, it works. So you start drinking Monsters and Red Bulls and whatever else the energy drink is, and it's really nice to wash that down with some Flamin' Fuego Takis or some other kind of salty chips. This isn't good for you, and you can get addicted to energy drinks and Monster snacks, okay? More of the teenage department, okay? Now, we're not done. We are not done. Because this early onset of addiction to something silly and simple like food, it progresses, okay? Let's get to adulthood. We're over 21. Okay, here we go. Come on now. Your pastor just put Coors Light on the table. I also got some scratch-off tickets. All right? $10, I bought these scratch-off tickets. Coors Light, some greed and some gambling, but we got to round her off. Right, here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Marlboro Man. I went to the attendant. I was like, what's the most common, oldest cigarette you can buy? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, what's the most recognizable, oldest school cigarette there is? He's like, probably Marlboro. I'm like, oh yeah, Marlboro. I'm Marlboro Man. You're like, what is the pastor doing? Well, addiction tends to grow, okay? There's a 4-pack of Coors Light, okay? Now, here's a beer. Maybe you drink a beer, maybe not. The average adult male, around, say, 170, 200 pounds, drinks a beer. He's not intoxicated. But you do this, you got a problem. And you do this, things aren't going so well. And by the time you do this, you got a problem. Okay? People are addicted to alcohol, and you're not to be addicted to anything. You might as well, throw in some Marlboro cigarettes, because nicotine, that's an addictive substance. They say it's harder to come off nicotine than it is cocaine. Okay. So I show you these things to show you that there is a progression of addiction. Now, I don't know what's more disturbing. I purchased all of these items at one location. I literally went into one place, which will remain nameless, and I just realized I can buy all of this in one spot. And it's ultra convenient. It's a convenient store where I can buy highly addictive substances for my children, for my teenagers, and for myself. That's interesting. So addiction is a problem. And I'll say it like this. As an adult and as a believer, you are called to live a life free of addiction. Now, here's the reason why. What does it have to do with smartphones? We're not done. Addiction is a persistent, compulsive dependence on a behavior or a substance that has been partially replaced. This has been partially replaced in the medical community by the word dependence for substance abuse. Addiction has been extended, however, to include mood-altering behaviors or activities. Some researchers speak of 2 types of addiction. There's substance addiction and there's process addiction. This is a definition from the medical dictionary. Addiction means that in order for you to feel normal and to feel happy, you have to partake in a substance or participate in activity to regulate homeostasis. Now, here's the nature of addiction. You have substances and activities. These activities in the substance department are just physically bad for you. They're not good for you. If you participate in these randomly or over long blocks of time intermittently, you don't have the negative effects that if you consume these items or take them in regularly. That's how addiction works, okay? Case in point, you can't buy alcohol, cigarettes, or scratch-off tickets until you're older than 18, 21 in some instances, whatever the local laws may be. So we have laws that say, child can't buy these things, but they can buy this, and they can buy this. Okay, I just want to point this out. I was walking through the convenience store, and I had all this stuff in my arm. I'm walking through the convenience store, and I thought, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to run into a whole family from the church. And they're going to be like, what? But that's not exactly what happened. I walked in, and this lady walks in with her son. She takes a look at me like that. And she looks back, and she's kind of like, in her mind, she's thinking like, what is wrong? What's wrong with that guy? Like, you got some problems, right? I get to the counter, I check out. I tell the guy at the counter what I was doing. He's like, you're going to do what? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this in illustration. It's going to be great. And he's like, okay, man. He's checking me out. I turn around, I go, and I see the scratch-off thing. I'm like, I'm going to get some scratch-off tickets. So I'm not saying I'm like holier than thou, but I haven't done a lot of this. This is the first time I bought cigarettes. I'm buying scratch-off tickets, and so I'm at the thing, and I turn around, and when I guess I was taking too long, because I'm like, I'm not sure, I'm freaking, which one's shiny, and, I turn around, and there's this old guy, probably 60 years old, and he's like, good luck, brother. And I'm like, thanks. And it was just like the irony of it, it's just like the whole experience was hilarious. I'm in the store, it's just all of it was funny. It was all funny. So I show these things to show you that these are substances. No, I'm going to leave them out. Yep, I will leave them out. It's a good idea. These substances have issues with substance-type addiction. But so these activities, when I consume these foods, I have a problem, right? I have a potential serious problem in the works. I told you, you were literally never going to forget this for the rest of your life. I saw a pastor bring out Oreos and chocolate milk, Monster Energy drinks and snacks, Coors Light, Marlboro cigarettes, and scratch-offs. Well, these are examples of things that are substance activities that are addictive, but there are other activities that are just downright dangerous. Okay, so as a parent, if I leave any of these items out unattended around my kids, am I a good parent? Well, this, it's probably just bad judgment, right? This, it's like, do you want to peel your kid off the ceiling? But like if I leave this around, especially if my kids have seen me use this, they're going to be tempted to find out what it is, right? Okay, correct? Am I right? Okay, so I'm not talking about parents and children. Okay, here's a pair of scissors. Now, if I leave these pair of scissors out around my teenage children, not a big deal. But at one time, our teenage children were little children. We had to be on alert. Scissors and sharp objects. Can't leave them out. Because what's a child going to do? They're going to pick this up, and they're going to want to cut some paper, or heaven forbid, they go running through the house or down the steps, okay? Well, true story. My wife, Rachel, and I are sitting in the living room. Our two oldest daughters, our third daughter isn't born, our two oldest daughters, beautiful, they're like lovely little things, like 3 and 2 maybe, I forget what the ages are. There's pretty much a constant ruckus in the house, right? There's always sound when they're awake. Who parents or grandparents know about this? Constant humming in the background, right? We're sitting there talking, and all of a sudden I realize I'm really enjoying my wife's company because it's quiet. And I say to her, why don't I hear anything? I said, what's wrong? I jump up. I run in full dad combat kill mode around the corner to see one of my daughters sitting at the end of the hallway in her diaper, facing away in shame. And I say my daughter's name, and she turns and she grins. And my brain is doing this, something's wrong and what's not right with this picture. Where is Waldo? And then I realize her hair's gone. And she loves her new pixie do. And apparently her sister found some safety scissors. We put all the good ones up. They're the rounded, dull ones. They cut all the hair off of all their dolls. And then in this, I have very artistic children. I'm sure they were having the early stages of an onset of creative bliss. And they're like, we've recreated all of these beautiful Barbies. And now I must recreate you. And so off her sister's hair went. So, it's kind of a funny story now. No harm, no foul. They didn't fall on the scissors. No one stuck it through their eyes. It wasn't that bad. But I'll say it like this. As a parent, if I leave this out, I'm kind of being negligent. Now, they can still get safety scissors. I don't even know what to say about that. But a big pair of nice scissors is potentially a problem when you've got little kids around the house under 5 years of age, okay? Now, as a parent, if I leave this out, maybe I'm not a great parent. Now, this is a chainsaw, okay? And let's see if we can get old girl to go. Come on now. Yep. That's a real chainsaw. Okay. Do I have your attention now? If I put this out on the dining room table and I walk away, I'm probably not using the best judgment, right? As a parent, heaven forbid you got little boys around the house. So as a parent, if I leave an end tree saw, this, I'll tell you what, just geek out for a second, guys. I went down to the lawnmower shop, and I'm like, give me the best. Come on. And the guy's like, you want the best? I'm like, give me the best. He's like, I'll give you the best. So I go and get this Echo end tree saw. And here's what this saw is designed to do. It's designed for an arborist to be way up in a tree where it's already dangerous and you're in some kind of harness and you got to take a branch, up to maybe 6 inches, and it cuts crazy fast. Like so fast, he's like, I'm just going to tell you right now, you really got to keep that away from yourself because it'll just remove limbs. Not tree limbs, I'm talking about your limbs, so we'll just take them off, okay? You can't bump yourself, you can't bop yourself. It's real bad. So he's like, basically just consider it to be a lightsaber. I'm like, okay. And that's about the scale that it's on. As a parent, if I leave this out, especially if I leave it running, gassed up, oiled up, ready to go, I'm not exercising good judgment. There's some mortal danger now. Okay? Talk about safetyism. We had some people come to church here years ago. I won't say their names. Sweet, loving people, but highly educated individual, has a beautiful little child, won't let the grandparents touch the child. Won't let anyone touch the child. The child has to give everyone permission in order to touch them or talk to them. And I'm like, I don't think that's gonna work. But anyways, safetyism to the max. Bad therapy. You're raising a little child that's not going to be resilient, not social. So we need to exercise safety for our children, but there is a place where you can go too far. But I would say a running chainsaw on the dining room table is crossing the line, friend. Okay, now don't panic. If I say don't panic, that means it's about to get real. Okay? What I'm about to do, you will not forget. And I'm going to tell you right now, you are not in mortal danger at all. Okay? This is a .44 Magnum revolver. Okay? It is unloaded. Hence the polar bear. This .44 Magnum revolver is to carry when you hunt in a place where there's big dangerous game, okay, for personal protection. I leave that revolver out on the table. It's actually illegal to do that in a household full of children. But if I take a box full of shells, put them next to the gun, and walk away, I'm not just a negligent parent. I have a serious judgment problem. Now, people tell me, my kids are trained with guns. They know all the gun safety. Look, here's my take on it. I had an instructor at one time, an Israeli-based fighting system. He's from Israel. They have war all the time. He's like, I have a house full of guns. And in my house, all the guns are loaded. And my son knows how to unload and make safe every gun in the house. I'm like, you live in a war zone, okay? I don't think that's great advice for like the regular everyday American. Now, I'll say it like this. We want to be safe with all these objects, from scissors to a chainsaw to a firearm. But here's the point. Children do not cognitively possess the capacity to make great judgments with all these things. Let me make it more clear. Research shows that all through your teenage years, the front part of your brain that makes good decisions, that exercises self-control, that is cognitive for like what's good judgment, what's bad judgment, it's not developed yet. A baby, from baby to 5 years old, your brain grows to almost its full adult capacity. Think about that. But that's, you ever notice little kids about 5 have giant heads? It's because their brain is like adult size. But it's not wired up yet. Through their childhood and teenage years, through experience, they're being hardwired. And by the time you get to your mid-20s, this part of your brain that the Bible talks about, whatever you do, get good judgment, fully engages. It's not engaged when you're a teenager. It's not engaged when you're a child. So I don't care what kind of training your child has, it's against the law to have a firearm out with ammunition in your house. It's got to be locked up because children can make bad decisions. They could hurt themselves or they could hurt their sibling. So what do? Child can't buy a firearm. We're going to put them in a safe place. The children don't need to be running a tree chainsaw to do an art project. And scissors are going to be highly governed. Correct? What all does this have in common? Well, these substances have a problem because they're addictive in nature. And these activities are fundamentally dangerous. It doesn't mean you can't consume these things. You can. And it doesn't mean that you can't use these tools. You can. But it takes really good judgment. And it takes development that requires time. So what I'm going to say to you, I want to say to everyone here. This is a magic merger between those things. It is addictive substance-wise because it's continual rot for your brain, and it is legitimately dangerous. Legitimately dangerous. So if you're a parent or a grandparent, I want to ask you a question. You wouldn't make all these things available to your children without what? Yeah, some kind of supervision. And maybe you're like, no, not at all. Pastor Crawford told me a hilarious story last week. We're out to dinner. He said when he was 13 years old, his crazy grandpa said, hey, son, why don't you drive me down the road? And so Pastor Crawford said, I got in the car, and he said, turn here, go there. And at 13 years of age, he drove him a bunch of miles out into Mayaca. Okay, that's a different time. When grandpa's like, drive me out to Mayaca. Okay? Probably not the best judgment, but actually pulled it off. He's obviously still alive. And he said that he'd already been sneaking out in the car when he was 12. So kids used to do things differently than they do today. Half the kids today won't get their driver's license. Does anybody else know about this? They just won't get their driver's license. Well, they're like, I can't figure it out. When I was a teenager, I wanted to have a driver's license. I wanted to go and run around. Why don't they want driver's licenses? I'll tell you why. It's because they have the entire universe they live in their phone. The boys have endless gaming. So listen, boys like medals, they like awards. Well, they can go online and make a group of friends that aren't even in America, and they can become a squad, and they can get new skins and new badges and level up every single day. And online, they're like a real deal Navy SEAL online. They're a Delta Force operator, top tier online. They are online. But they aren't here. They can't bench press their body weight. Okay? By the way, if they want a girlfriend, what do they need a girlfriend for? They can look at any and all types of pornography as long as they want, for free. All by themselves. Girls, the social connection is just off the charts. Circle of friends, it's not 3 or 4. You're part of a group of 10,000 following Kim Kardashian or some other influencer. That's why we dress like her and talk like her and act like her. Okay? So hear me now. I'm not throwing stones, and I'm not saying anyone in here is a bad person. I'm saying we have to sound an alarm about what's going on. In the coming weeks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start offering for you some practical things that can be done to put some safeguards on all these digital devices. Okay? There's some research coming out by professionals that say these things should be done at a bare minimum. I'm going to talk to you about those things. But I have a list of recommendations that I think every believer should consider. So in the coming weeks, what I'm going to be talking about is some very, very practical things concerning the use of these digital devices and nonstop connectivity. Okay? You are called to be free and not addicted. Addiction is a real deal, and smartphone addiction, digital device addiction, is a very, very real thing. In Bible times, the word that they used for addiction was slavery to sin. The words they used to describe what addiction was like was idolatry and the worship of other gods. You're like, well, how does that work? When you place a thing or a substance on the throne of your heart as the place you go to get satisfied and pacified, you have set up another god before me. And I want you to think about this concerning the nature of addiction. These phones are an edifice being erected in our world, the worship of another god. You can worship yourself. You can worship someone online. And in the coming weeks, we're going to talk about how deep the rabbit hole goes. Just wait till we get to AI, okay? You're living in a science fiction movie. And what we have to consider now is the consequences, and this is all I'll say, is turning these devices loose in our lives and the lives of our kids and grandkids with zero boundaries. That is insane. I want to say it to you, and I want you to check your heart. Does it make sense to as a gatekeeper, to give a portal to everything in known existence to your 10-year-old? And be like, you'll figure it out. To your 15-year-old? If you've got daughters, I've got 3, the carnage from these devices is just unmanageable. From addiction, there's 2 more things. And that is self-harm and suicide and all manner of mental illness. These things are contributing to all these problems in our day. So I'll give you just one thing, and we're done for today. I know I've gone longer. I'm passionate about this subject. And now you can say, you saw a pastor in one service pull out a chainsaw, a 44 Magnum revolver, and Coors Light, some cigarettes and scratch-offs. You're like, what was the message about? Well, it was about addiction. And it all centers around that kind of addiction that I hope we can change our minds about these and how these have to be used properly. I'll give you this one thing, one final kind of thought. Here's something you can do right now, okay? Here's a simple boundary I would encourage every believing person in this room to consider embracing. First hour, last hour. First hour of the day, last hour of the day. No digital device. First hour, last hour. Start your day with your Father. End your day with your family. See if that doesn't help you. Okay?